This is a review on the fridge that we've been using for our trips. It's a Dometic CFX 40, and we've used it for our month-long trip to the US, where for most of the trip we were in plus 30-degree weather, sometimes plus 40-degree weather. We've also used it for a week-long trip to BC, and then a couple weekend trips in Alberta. So first, I'm going to talk about the general specs of the fridge. Then I'll talk about how we use it, what we like about it, and what we had difficulty with. I'm going to also demonstrate how much food you can fit in it, and then I'll talk about why we chose this fridge and whether or not it would be a good fit for you. So again, this is a Dometic CFX 40. The capacity is 40 quarts or 38 liters or 60 cans, and it weighs about 41 pounds, so it's quite heavy. And if you're going to get the Dometic fridge slide, that's another approximately 40 pounds. So that's something to consider if you're trying to keep your weight down. You could be adding 80 pounds to your setup. There are vents in the front and on the sides in the front. The plugins are located at the back near the bottom, and the unit comes with both AC and DC plugins. The corners are reinforced, the hinges are stainless steel, and the handles are also quite rugged and spring back into place. There's an LED light inside so you can see at night, and an LED display in front to select your desired temperature. This is a compressor fridge, so it can cool down to minus 22 degrees Celsius, so it can be used as a freezer as well as a fridge, but not both at the same time. You can connect to the fridge through an app on your phone, which allows you to control the fridge and to monitor the temperature. Keep in mind that if you are using Wi-Fi, that the Wi-Fi transmitter will use a small amount of power. The app allows you to control other features which are also available from the LED panel on your fridge. You can set your battery protection level. This enables your fridge to turn off once your battery has reached a certain level of voltage in order to protect you from completely draining your battery. You can set this at either high, medium, or low, depending on the voltage that you want your fridge to turn off at. You can also set your temperature units and also a temperature alarm so that if your fridge falls outside of these limits, you'll get an alert notifying you. For the power consumption, this is just taken off of the Amazon website. It uses 0.74 amp hours per hour, and that's at 12 volts with a 41 degree F or 5 degrees Celsius interior at 90 degree F or 32 degrees Celsius ambient. So I'm just going to open the fridge here, and inside there are two compartments. So the main compartment has this removable basket, and in the middle there is a removable divider. So that's really nice to have because it keeps food separate so that things aren't falling all over each other when you're removing items. And then over here there is a smaller compartment, and this compartment actually doesn't stay as cold as the main compartment. So there is a drain at the bottom of the fridge. Sorry, the fridge is kind of dirty, but the drain plug is just held by friction fit with this gasket. So I just plugged the fridge in, and you can probably hear it, but it's quite quiet. The compressor is just cycling on right now. The fridge is actually very quiet, and sometimes we couldn't even tell that it was on, but for those of you that need technical data, it is rated at 42 decibels. The outside dimensions can be found on either the Amazon or the Dometic website, and since I couldn't find any inside dimensions, I decided to measure them out myself. Here are some measurements. So it's about 6 inches to that ledge there, and oh gosh, 4? I can't tell. 4 and a little bit. 4 and 1/8 to this side. This portion is hard to do with one hand. 11 inches. So to spare you my shaky arm measurements, I decided to measure it and just draw it out for you. This is a larger compartment, and from my calculations, it worked out to be approximately 30 liters. Now remember that these are not exact measurements because I was just measuring it with my measuring tape and doing the calculations. But for the smaller compartment, as you saw in my measurements, it worked out to be about 6.5 liters. Now, my calculations are off a bit because I get 36.5 liters instead of 38 liters, but what's important to note is the actual capacity of food that you can cool is about 30 liters. You're not actually getting the 38 liters that's quoted because the smaller compartment doesn't cool as much as the larger one. It looks like similar sized ARB fridges are designed the same way, where you've got one main compartment and then a smaller side compartment that doesn't reach the temperatures of the main compartment. However, when you look at the Engels fridge, it's just one single compartment, so all of the food in that compartment should be ideally close to the same temperature, and the capacity that you're getting is a capacity that is quoted with the fridge. So after doing all that, I found the dimensions on the Dometic website, and with my new calculations, the inner compartment comes out to be about 34 liters, which is still less than 38 liters. So now I'm going to talk about how we use the fridge and our experience with it so far. So we have a dual battery system that we use to power the fridge. The secondary battery is charged from the alternator, and when the ignition is off, the secondary battery is isolated from the main car battery. The dual battery kit came with this visual indicator, and pretty much when we would check it in the mornings, the battery was almost always full. In this clip, this is just an example. The fridge wasn't actually plugged in, and the Jeep was parked in minus 30-degree weather for a few days. To save on money and weight, I made this DIY fridge slide just using 1/2-inch plywood and some heavy-duty locking slides, so it locks both in and out, and it worked quite well. Here I'm just cleaning out the fridge after about 2 weeks of use, and as you can see, there's some condensation along the walls at the back there. And also, while the light is very helpful at night, moths and bugs will become attracted to it and then get trapped in your fridge and die, which I had the pleasure of finding when I was cleaning out the fridge. I'm not really sure why the liquid at the bottom is brown, since I know we didn't have any spills, but I think it might have had something to do with the condensation on the cans, because when we would take the cans out, we did notice that it did have some dark residue on it. One thing that we thought could have been built a bit better is the latching mechanism for the door. It's just 2 small plastic hooks, and while we haven't had any problems with this yet, when comparing with some of the other fridges that latch with steel latches, these look like they might fail sooner. If you're wondering what these 2 circles are, they're actually magnets that we stuck to the top of the lid, and the reason we did that is because we couldn't actually open the lid all the way, just based on how far the fridge was extending out of the Jeep. The hatch of the Jeep was in the way, so one person would have to hold the lid open while the other person organized the fridge, or you'd have to use one arm to hold the lid open while reaching into the fridge. So what we did was we stuck a couple magnets on the lid, and then we stuck a couple magnets at the top of the hatch of the Jeep. And what that allowed us to do is just to have the fridge held open, and then we could access the fridge with both hands. Now let's do a food packing demo. I'll show you how all this food can fit inside the fridge. And if you're wondering, you can fit a bottle of wine in here, and it will be like there's still a lot of clearance there. So up in this area, it doesn't stay as cool as the rest of the fridge, so I normally just put things that don't really require refrigeration. However, in this clip, I'm just stuffing it with other things so you get an idea of what can fit. Just trying to position this into the inside of that, and it should snap. So that gives you an idea of the amount of food that can fit in here. It should be enough food for like 2 adults for maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, depending on what you eat and how much other dry foods you have, but quite a lot of stuff can fit in here. So here's the ledge of the fridge, and this lip sits inside, and it goes down about, I'll show you the profile here, maybe like 1/2 inch, I don't know, a centimeter. So you just have to be sure that when you're putting stuff in, it can't be like right up to the edge, like this ketchup was like right up to the edge. And we would put everything in, and then we'd be like, why isn't it closing? It closed before, and it was because this ketchup kept moving around from here to here or whatever. So just remember to leave about 1/2 inch around this ledge. Like I had this right here, and it wasn't gonna close because it was right up on the ledge. So yeah, but other than that, if things were kind of pushed in the center, you have another like inch maybe from where this is, maybe a little bit less than an inch, for it to kind of be a little bit higher. But again, the higher you are, the less refrigeration you're gonna get, because the bulk of it, the bulk of the cold air is gonna be down here. So let's talk about why we chose this fridge. We were looking for a ruggedized fridge that used very little power, since we were going on more of these overlanding type extended camping trips, and we didn't want the hassle of having to look for ice. As to why we chose this fridge instead of some of the other brands really came down to price and availability in our area, and this fridge also got some pretty good reviews. We also really liked the fact that the vents were in the front, so it could sit inside our camping box and get proper ventilation. In the past, we've used both a regular Coleman cooler and a thermoelectric cooler. The Coleman cooler served us well for many weekend trips, and so in my opinion, if you're only going out for a weekend or 3 to 4 days, a good ice cooler should be just fine. As for the thermoelectric cooler, this can only cool down 20 degrees below ambient, so it's not a real fridge as you can't set the temperature. When we were using this, we didn't have a secondary battery, so we were unplugging it as soon as we stopped driving. That always left me paranoid that food was going bad. If you've got extra battery power to run this constantly, maybe this fridge would be a good fit for you, as long as it's not hotter than 25 degrees Celsius. This one cost us about $130 at Costco, and I actually regret buying it since we ended up buying the compressor fridge anyway, so we don't have much use for this. So overall, we're quite happy with the fridge. It's very well built and performed very well in some extreme temperatures. And even though the stated capacity of the fridge is different than the capacity of the main cooling compartment, we were still happy with the fridge. When you compare the prices with some of the other brands, it was still a better deal. So there you have it. That's my review of this fridge. I hope you found it useful, and thanks for watching.